All right, welcome to episode 32 of Before the Bald Man Speaks. Your host, Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence, is not here. He's down in Brazil, doing whatever. I don't know exactly what he's doing. Doesn't matter. Filling in for him. I'm Nick Baldwin. I'm your host for this evening's episode of Before the Bald Man Speaks. Joining me to recap this evening's action, UFC 196, McGregor versus Diaz, is the host of the Flyin Brian show, Flyin Jeffries. Jesus Christ, Flyin Jeffries, Flyin Brian Jeffries. I guess I should say Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Nick, I'm like Cher. I don't have a last name, so it's just Flying Brian. Hey,
Okay.
motherfuckers, I'm not surprised.
I'll go with Flyin Brian from here on out. Also joining us is Best Fight Picks himself, Daniel Levy. Daniel, how's it going?
It's going awesome, man. Didn't let my love of McGregor get in the way of making money. So, I'm chilling, man. But I'll tell you what, that main event was super eye-opening. We should just put the talks of him fighting at welterweight on the back burner. This guy's got to go back to 145 pounds because, you can tell that size difference off the bat. Like, at the weigh-ins, to me it looked like, okay, he's got this, and he was doing really good in the first round. But props to Nate. He ate that left hand like a champ. And he persevered, man. So, everyone knows what kind of fan of McGregor I am, but I'm also a fan of the Diaz brothers for a long time, and props to Nate. That was a great performance, man.
Yeah, so much for McGregor versus Robbie Lawler at UFC 200.
Oh, man.
At best we'll probably get McGregor RDA, but that's even a stretch. We'll get into it more in depth, of course, but main event, obviously Daniel talked about it already. Conor McGregor loses his first UFC fight in his first fight not at featherweight. Of course, as we all know, he was supposed to fight RDA for the lightweight title, super fight if you want to call it that. RDA got hurt, a foot injury. Nate Diaz steps up and submits him in the second round. What an eye-opening performance. Like Daniel mentioned, Brian, Flying Brian, give me your thoughts.
Well, on the Flying Brian show with Mr. Daniel Levy here, I said, it's going to be tough for McGregor to put Nate Diaz down with his left-hand shot because Diaz has only been finished one time with strikes. He's going to be super well hydrated in this fight. And, McGregor landed that left-hand shot cleanly a couple of times, and Nate just kind of shrugged it off and kept rolling with it. I want to talk about what's next for these guys. Daniel says that McGregor needs to go back to 145. Nick, you're saying perhaps face RDA at UFC 200. Here's what I want to do, guys. I think that Conor needs to go back down to 145, and sure, Edgar, Aldo, whoever wants the fight the most, I guess, can face Conor McGregor, and then let's send Nate Diaz to face Rafael dos Anjos at 155 pounds.
Okay.
After that performance, you just take out the god of our sport, or the most popular person in our sport. I think that Nate Diaz deserves whatever fight he wants. If he wants big money, that's UFC 200, RDA, lightweight title fight.
Keep in mind, though, Nate Diaz already lost to RDA not too long ago.
Yeah, he did, but he says that he had an injury. He did not look nearly as good in that fight as he did against Michael Johnson, and I think he deserves it. And he went to a decision. RDA ran through everyone else, but Nate went to a decision with him. I think he deserves another shot if he wants it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Yeah, he did lose, and I would probably side with Dos Anjos again if they did have a rematch, just because it is Rafael Dos Anjos. He is one of the best. He is the best at lightweight and one of the best throughout the lighter weight classes. I think he'd probably run through Nate Diaz again, but Nate Diaz wasn't that motivated in that fight. He was getting like 20 to win, 20 to show. Not that good pay. He didn't look in shape. He didn't really seem to care about that fight. So, it could be a different fight. Back to McGregor-Diaz, though. We already touched on it. Let's get a bit more in-depth, though. Where does McGregor go from here? I don't think we're going to see him, like I said, at welterweight anytime soon. I don't think we see Lawler-McGregor anytime soon. Will it sometime happen? Maybe. But honestly, it's really tough to say. McGregor, he's still the champion featherweight. That's why this situation is interesting. Will he want to cut that weight again? I'm not so sure. But the thing is, now we're all expecting him to beat Nate Diaz and either fight Dos Anjos for the lightweight title at UFC 200 or fight Lawler at UFC 200 for the welterweight title. Now he is not really in that position for either fight. Does he go back down to featherweight where he's the champion and say fight Edgar at UFC 200? Does he just favor getting more money? Because he'll get money no matter what. So the belt really doesn't matter money-wise. So does he not want to cut weight and stay at lightweight or go down to lightweight if you want to say? I mean, there's so many options. It depends where his head is at. What comes first, cutting weight or like money? It's really tough to say. Brian, add on to that.
Daniel's turn. You go, Daniel. What do you think?
Well, firstly, tonight cemented that weight classes are there for a reason.
Yep.
So, he needs to do what's right, go back to 145 pounds, give Frankie Edgar a shot, and take it from there, man. Because, look, he had a chance tonight to prove that, maybe he could fight at 170, and he dropped the ball. So it is what it is. You got to move forward. He's got to go back to, where he has the belt. It's 145 pounds. I know the weight cut is tough, but suck it up, man. You're the champ. Give Frankie a shot now, and let's see what happens after that.
Now, Brian, as far as the fight, when McGregor was really lighting him up in the first round, I mean, I thought Nate Diaz was going to go down at any moment, but I said, I was with a group of people, and I said, Nate Diaz's toughness is the one thing going for him, and obviously it was that, with showing he didn't get finished, showing off his toughness, and of course his ground skills, his submission game. Were you surprised that he was able to weather the storm of Conor McGregor, able to survive the first round and end up getting the tap in the second?
I'm not surprised. I mean, I talked about it on the Flyin Brian show with Daniel here that I thought that Nate Diaz was going to be able to take the punishment, but I still picked Conor McGregor. Maybe call me a Conor McGregor fanboy, whatever. Looking at the film, that's what I thought would happen. One thing that I want to touch on real fast. I'm diving away and eluding your question, Nick, but Conor McGregor, before they touched gloves, before the second round started, he was walking towards Nate and he said, "I could do this all day." And looking at it in hindsight, that was probably something in Conor McGregor's mind, trying to hype himself up. Afterward, he said that he might have gassed out his arms, swinging too hard at Nate Diaz. And when he said that I could go all day, it's like when a guy gets rocked or gets hit in the face and they smile and like, it didn't affect me. Obviously, Conor was affected right there. So maybe if Conor, I don't want to see him at 170 pounds. He would get just rolled over by Wonderboy Thompson or Robbie Lawler, right? They're just way too big for him. But if he were to try it again, he's going to need more cardio, especially if he's going to be trying to swing that hard again. Was I surprised, if anything, in this fight? When Conor got wobbled right there, in the second round there, I was like, am I really seeing this? I was like, holy shit, we've never seen Conor. His eyes were kind of glazed over, and he's just like wobbling around. I'm like, is this really happening? I felt like surreal. It was like a dream state at the time. I've been drinking quite a bit, but I was still pretty surprised at that.
Now, Daniel, do you want to add on to that? Was it surprising that Nate Diaz was able to overcome the constant shots and precise shots, you got to mention, of Conor McGregor in that first round? Like I said, I believed Nate Diaz was going down any second. Somehow he survived the first bell and obviously got the submission. So were you surprised about that, first off?
Well, I wasn't surprised about his durability because I know Nate Diaz is a very durable dude. But, I mean, I've seen Conor go the distance before with Max Holloway. So I thought that if, by chance, Diaz didn't get knocked out, that McGregor could outpoint him. What really surprised me was the fact that, Diaz was able to crack that iron jaw of McGregor. McGregor is known for his chin. We talked about it on the show that eventually one day it's going to go. I didn't think it'd be tonight, man. So, once again, props to Diaz, and he did his thing, man. He overcame adversity. Conor was looking great early. I do think that he got a little bit cocky in that second round, but that's not to take away from what Diaz did tonight because, I mean, he ate that left hand like it was nothing, man, and he finished the fight. So props to Nick.
Do you think there was a clear cardio issue? Do you think he maybe instead of go ahead?
I don't think it's a cardio issue, man. I think what happened was, first of all, he was having trouble with the range. And not only that, then he got rocked. And once you get rocked, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in the best shape of your life. Your cardio goes out the window, So once he was rocked, Nate capitalized on the opportunity and finished the fight.
I do kind of think there wasn't a cardio issue because Conor didn't have an issue with the range in the first round. He was lighting Nate Diaz up, and like I've already said a few times, he nearly knocked out Nate Diaz, but it was Nate Diaz's durability that obviously saved him and allowed him to not lose the fight. And then eventually the tides turned in the second round, midway through it or whatever. Conor McGregor he started to slow down, and Conor addressed that in the post-fight interview too. He realizes that maybe he should just focus on his cardio a bit more than say his movement. Like obviously every aspect of MMA is important, but cardio is a big factor, and we know just from prior fights, cardio can win you fights. Look at Michael Bisping. He doesn't have power, like he doesn't have one punch knockout power per se, but cardio is a big thing. He has won fights purely because of his cardio and his volume and things like that. So it's an interesting situation as to where Conor McGregor goes from here. Obviously, he's still the featherweight champion, so I mean, he technically can defend that title and keep defending it if he wants to. But like we already said, will he want to go back down to 45? It's an interesting situation, and kind of just depends where his head is at, and obviously his decision. Anything else you guys want to add about this main event? I know we could talk all day about it. We still have a bunch more fights, including the co-main event, which was fantastic as well.
Nick, one more thing about this fight before we get on to the co-main event. I just want to touch on, you said that he wasn't having trouble with the range in the first round. He was having trouble with the range in the first round. He was overextending himself way more than he would against the midgets or the short guys that he used to fight, right? He was having to close that distance, so he was really lunging in there, throwing some leg kicks. It was a completely different thing. He was having trouble dealing with the range. But that's all I want to say. I'm ready to talk about Miesha Tate with the big upset there.
I mean, before we get to that, man, I mean, I think that the size was too much, and yeah, I mean, the speed wasn't there at that weight class. It didn't translate. So like we mentioned earlier, he's got to go back to his natural weight class, and it just went to cement the fact that no one is invincible. It's that lesson that we keep learning. We see these guys, Anderson Silva, who else lost recently? Sage Northcutt. It doesn't matter. Barao. There's so many guys that go on their streaks, Jose Aldo, and eventually they all lose. So, yeah, Conor McGregor lost tonight.
Yeah, it's like I said, time will tell as to where Conor McGregor goes from here. Let's talk about this evening's co-main event, and it was a shock for most people. Holly Holm, well, I guess in the first round, it was the first round, yeah, where Tate had the submission attempt, or the second, I can't recall. I believe the first round. Number 2?
Second round.
Second round. All right. So first round, pretty straightforward. Holly Holm maybe took home the first round. Not a whole lot happened. Second round, though, same thing at the beginning, but Miesha Tate with a very, very close submission attempt. Nearly had that submission locked in. Holm was very lucky to escape it, and the fact that it was at the end of the round. So third and fourth went down. Similar to the first. Holly Holm, I believe, outpointed her. I had Holly Holm up 39-37 going into the fifth round, but scorecards didn't matter. Miesha Tate with the fifth round submission. Just a beautiful performance, really overcoming Holly Holm's striking advantage, being able to take Holly Holm down multiple times. Say bye-bye to Holly Holm's 100% takedown defense, something Brian pointed out before this fight. That is gone, and we have a new champion, Miesha Tate. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's neat that we have these three ladies at the top where, Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, where Mike Goldberg said it a whole bunch of times. God, I get so tired of that guy, but he said it a bunch of times about Ronda and how they have this little love triangle. It's kind of like Johnny Bones Jones up there with Daniel Cormier and Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson. It's just really exciting. It shakes up the division quite a bit. I think that Miesha Tate deserves to get another shot. I want to hear what Daniel has to say about Holly Holm. So pass it on to Daniel.
Daniel, go ahead.
Well, Vegas Dave strikes again, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
He's got that almanac from the future, man. Biff from Back to the Future brought him a sports almanac.
I guess I'm a believer now. Hopefully, third time's the charm as well. And props to Misha. She went in there and did what she needed to do, make it a dirty fight. And you know what? Props to Holly too, because she went out like a champ. She didn't tap, and she fought till the bitter end, but lost. And props to Misha. She's the new champion. What I'm really wondering is what's Ronda Rousey thinking right now?
Yeah, what a crazy situation. First off, with the fight, unbelievable performance from Miesha Tate. Despite losing going into the fifth round, I mean, Holly Holm was like 3 minutes away from defending her championship for the first time. We'd be talking about Holly Holm's very calculated, unanimous decision win. We almost did, obviously, but of course, Miesha Tate was able to pull off the upset. And I just find it really strange that we call Miesha Tate now the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. Not because Ronda Rousey was so dominant, but just because it's Miesha Tate. She seemed like that one fighter that she seemed like that one fighter where she's the best that too. The best fighter though that would never become the champion. She'd just be like one step behind the champion, who for the most part was Ronda Rousey, but yeah, she's a champion now. It's a very, very interesting situation now with Ronda Rousey. Now, Ronda Rousey may be targeted for November. Maybe she never comes back with her Hollywood career. It's definitely possible that we never see Ronda Rousey in the cage ever again. I believe she'll come back, especially now that Miesha Tate's the champion. Ronda Rousey has a very good chance to regain her championship against Miesha Tate. I would even maybe pick Ronda Rousey now against Holm in a rematch, and that's one thing by itself I want to talk about in a bit. I guess right now, Brian, if Ronda Rousey, say Ronda Rousey comes back, beats Miesha Tate, and then Holly Holm's back in the number one contender spot, really looking for a crack at Ronda Rousey again, I would have picked Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey because of her striking advantage. But we saw Miesha Tate take Holly Holm down a few times tonight. If Ronda Rousey goes in there with the right game plan, submissions, taking her down, not striking with a former pro kickboxing champion, I think she can get it done. What do you think?
Nick, first I want to talk about a stat. I like to give out the stats on the shows that I do. A person that weighs in 1 pound underneath of the limit only wins 33% of the time. And after the weigh-ins yesterday, I said, I'm going to change my pick to Miesha Tate, but I got like 27 responses that said, you're a fucking idiot for changing your pick right now. But that was why I wanted to change it, because she weighed in less than the limit. You know, she weighed in at 134.5, which is something that's really interesting. The stat speaks for itself, as I'd like to say when I'm talking to Daniel. As for who would I favor in Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey rematch, I mean, I don't really need to talk about that because right now Miesha Tate is the champion, but I will talk about it anyway. Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate have completely different style of takedowns. Ronda Rousey has to get her hips extremely close because she does judo throws where Miesha Tate shoots for double legs from a distance. You know, Ronda Rousey has to have like her ribs on the other person's ribs, where Miesha Tate is going from a distance, and where Holly Holm wants to keep the distance. You know, I would still favor Holly Holm in the rematch with Ronda Rousey because Ronda needs to close the distance more than Miesha does. I'm excited for Miesha to be the champion. I want her to defend against Ronda Rousey at UFC. No, she can't at UFC 200 because Ronda won't be there, but we need her at UFC 200. So who does Miesha Tate defend her title against? Rematch against Holly Holm? Amanda Nunes? What do we do?
Give me Amanda Nunes. I mean, Holly Holm, yeah, she knocked out Ronda Rousey, the greatest athlete on earth, if you want to call her that at that time, of course. I mean, does Holly Holm deserve a rematch? I don't think so. She wasn't a dominant champion like Ronda Rousey was, and I would like to see Amanda Nunes versus Miesha Tate. That's the fight to make, in my opinion. Holly Holm, Miesha Tate would probably do a bit better numbers, but I don't think Holly Holm was at that level of stardom really at all yet, despite her win over Rousey. I think if she had beat Miesha Tate and gone on to defend a couple more times, she wouldn't be considered by the casual fan or known as by the casual fan the girl that knocked out Ronda Rousey. She would be known as Holly Holm, and that would be how it would be, I think. But now she's lost. Now she's a champion. No casual fan, as I hate to say this, no one's gonna really care about her anymore. Yeah, she does have that win over Ronda Rousey on her record. That's always gonna be there, but she's not the champion anymore. She's definitely not gonna draw pay-per-view numbers or anything like that. So, I mean, it's tough to say. I would like to see Miesha Tate, Amanda Nunes. I think that's the fight to make with Amanda Nunes' win over Valentina Shevchenko earlier tonight in the opening fight of the main card. But I could see Miesha sitting out till Rousey.
Yeah, man. I mean, I agree with you. Nunes should get the next shot. There's no other logical contender right now. And I disagree about people not caring about Holm. I mean, come on, man. You don't gotta be harsh. I know that bloody elbow is rubbing off on you a little bit, but I mean, look, she knocked out Rousey. There's either interest for that fight or possibly for a rematch down the line with Tate, but not right away. Amanda Nunes is on that win streak. It's her time to get the shot. So let's do Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, I agree. And I wasn't saying that I don't care about Holly Holm anymore. I definitely care about her. She's still one of the best women's bantamweights in the world, if not the best, because she was very close to beating Miesha Tate anyways. She was en route to a fairly clear decision. But I just mean the casual fans. Like, I believe that a few more title defenses, and she honestly could have been a pretty big star in the UFC. And to do that, you need to have the casual fans on board. And all I was saying is now she doesn't, because she isn't the champion, and it's a tough situation to say to talk about, because we don't know if Holly Holm even would have been a star despite the win over Rousey. Maybe casual fans never would have gotten on board the Holly Holm hype train. Maybe she'd always just be a fighter, a very good fighter, the champion. But that's something we'll never know, because Miesha Tate beat her tonight. So let's move on. There were three other fights, of course, on the main card, but we all have agreed that, I mean, they weren't the best fights ever. I mean, Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz and Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate lived up and basically saved the main card, but we got to talk about them very quickly. We'll just brush through all three kind of at once. We had Ilir Latifi picking up the decision win over Jean Vellante. I don't know how this went the distance. We also had Corey Anderson taking on Tom Lawler, with Anderson beasting 25-8, beasting himself en route to a decision. And we also had, like I mentioned, Amanda Nunes picking up a unanimous decision win over Valentina Shevchenko. Now, Daniel, talk about anything you want to talk about for these three fights. None of them really were great. They were all fairly lackluster, but let's quickly touch on all three.
All right, I'll make it quick. Do Corey Anderson versus Ilir Latifi, and then give the title shot to Nunes, like we said before. Problem solved.
Perfect. Very quick, very brief, but it's all right. Brian, anything else you want to add about Ilir Latifi's thrilling decision over Jean Vellante, or anything else?
Ilir Latifi is still the Nordic king and number one in my heart. Corey Anderson versus Tom Lawler. What the fuck were the judges thinking when they gave a 30-27 when Anderson did nothing but get rocked in round number one? And Amanda Nunes fades severely, and for that reason, I will pick Miesha Tate over her when they fight each other at UFC 200.
All right, and as for me, like I said, I don't know how Ilir Latifi versus Jean Vellante went the distance. I mean, two very hard hitters at 205. I thought for sure it was going to be over within a few minutes. Not that good of a fight. Corey Anderson did what he was expected to do against filthy Tom Lawler. I was very surprised to see Tom Lawler have success on the feet, though, early on. Nearly had Corey Anderson knocked out. I mean, it was relatively close, but I was also surprised that Corey Anderson didn't go for the takedowns as much as I thought he would. I thought he would really grind out Tom Lawler here. 15 minutes of pure takedowns, like his past couple fights, but he decided to stand with him for most of the fight anyways, and of course solidifying that last round with a takedown and grinding on top. Interesting fight. I mean, you got to do Corey Anderson, Ilir Latifi. I think that's the fight that makes sense. Um, you can't match up Lawler and Jean Vellante, though. They just fought recently. Amanda Nunes, fairly surprising to see her win by decision here. If anything, it would have been Shevchenko by decision or Nunes by TKO. Like I already mentioned, I think Amanda Nunes deserved that shot. It all depends when Ronda Rousey can return. If they do the whole rematch, which, I mean, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like I already said, Tate Nunes is the fight to make. Let's move on. Fox Sports 1 prelims. These prelims really, really good. Now, Daniel Levy, your boy CR, taking on Brandon Thatch. Very impressive performance for the returning CR, and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his last name once again. Daniel, you called it. CR will win this fight. You bet him. You bet Thatch, not Thatch, inside the distance. Obviously, you weren't surprised. Give me your thoughts on his performance.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he was a little bit rusty because of the 2-year layoff, but man, he really pulled through. He showed his heart. He ate some big shots from Thatch. I mean, we all know Thatch has some great kicks, but if you can take them and keep coming, you can break this guy. And I was surprised to see the improved takedowns. I was really happy to see that in CR's game. All the work he's been doing at Greg Jackson's. Man, it was a really determined performance, dude. He went out there and he made a statement. So, at the end of the show, we talk about the performance of the night. I would give CR one of the performances of the night.
All right, Brian, were you surprised? Were you siding with Brandon Thatch? Give me your thoughts on CR's submission victory. And let's just talk about Brandon Thatch's UFC career. Really, he really hasn't lived up to expectations whatsoever. He came in as this hot phenom that was going to do big things in the welterweight division, and now he seems to not be able to get past barely top 15 competition. So give me your thoughts on the fight. Give me your thoughts on CR returning to action, and give me your thoughts on Brandon Thatch's overall career.
I did pick Thatch by first round KO or TKO, but the number one MMA analyst in the entire motherfucking world was on CR, the great Bahadur Zada. So for that reason, I am not surprised that he came through with the victory. That was pretty impressive. It was impressive that he beat him on the feet as well as on the ground. We know that Thatch doesn't have any ground game whatsoever, but for CR the Great to beat him on the feet as well, rocked him, then took him down, then finished him on the ground. The stand-up was where it was surprising a little bit. But talking about Brandon Thatch and his UFC career, this guy's a one-trick pony. He has no ground game whatsoever. And Daniel talked about how he is a super quick tapper. As soon as that was on and he passed guard, tapping, it's over. And he had no defense of it. He had no takedown defense whatsoever. Just kind of dropped to the ground and hope that he wouldn't get submitted. I don't know. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal kickboxer. Maybe he should try that over there with Glory and Bellator or something. But he's not going to make it into the top 15 UFC ever at this point. But Rufio.
Yeah, I don't get that.
It's off of a movie with Robin Williams called Hook, where he's Peter Pan.
Oh man, that's a classic.
One of Robin Williams' buddies on that show, they're in Neverland or whatever in this dream world, right? The leader of this little group of kids has the same mohawk as Brandon Thatch.
Okay, I've seen the movie. I don't remember that though. But,
and Brian, just to follow up on that point, that Thatch is also the last name of Blackbeard the pirate. So, there are some pirate similarities, in Thatch's ancestry.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon Thatch the Pirate. Let's move on, though. I mean, I didn't really give my thoughts too much. I mean, CR looked really good. I expected a bit more cage rust. Like Daniel said, he did look a bit rusty. I will agree, but he looked pretty damn good for a guy that hasn't fought since 2013. His power was there. I wasn't sure of that. And, I mean, Brandon Thatch just didn't seem like he wanted it that badly. He gave up takedowns at will, and that was basically the story of the fight. He got in some good shots. You got to give him that. It was close at the beginning, but CR just pulled away with the victory. in the latter rounds, and of course got the third round submission. Now moving on,
Hey,
Nordine. Yeah,
not bad for a plus 265 underdog, right?
exactly. That's why Brian says you're the best analyst in the world, and that's why everyone calls you best fight picks.
He's
It,
too kind.
yeah. Anyways, though, this is when maybe you're not best fight picks. This is when maybe I am best fight picks. Not to brag, but Nordine Taleb shut down the Eric Silva Love Fest forever. Daniel, now, why did you pick Eric Silva here? Why did you keep the love fest going? And how shocked are you that Nordine Taleb, the Canadian, if I may add, pulled off the knockout victory?
I mean, I can't say I'm that shocked because of the way it went down. You know, when Eric loses, that's how he loses. He was super hesitant. He didn't let it go, and you know, it's interesting because Nordine injured himself early in the fight, so you would have thought that Eric could have capitalized on that, but he couldn't. You know, it's a different time in the sport, and like you said, the love fest is over, my friend. So props to Nordine.
Absolutely. Now, Brian, give me your thoughts on this fight. Eric Silva, just honestly, now I hate to accuse him of things of
Oh
taking
yeah, here we
certain
go.
things. No, I'm serious though. I hate to accuse him of it, but he doesn't look the same. Not just physically, but even just skill wise, even just fight wise. He just wouldn't let his hands go as much as he did in his even just a few years ago. He nearly beat Matt Brown, one of the best welterweights in the world. He looked like he could be the next big thing, and now he looks like he's nearly done for his UFC career. It looks like maybe it could be over. Like I think that they'll give him one or two more fights, but it's definitely winding down fast. Give me your thoughts on Nordine Taleb's pretty surprising knockout victory. I picked Nordine Taleb, but I didn't pick him by very impressive knockout.
Okay, so Eric Silva's still the more handsome of the two men, so he's got a lot going for him. Let's talk about your PED accusation there, Nick.
Yeah.
Skill-wise, let's talk about my favorite fighter of all time, Anderson the Spider Silva. He had Michael Bisping hurt many times in their fight recently, yet failed to pull the trigger. And we all know that he was on PEDs previously, but he seemed really hesitant to pull that fucking trigger. Eric Silva seemed hesitant to do much of anything other than try to throw a cheap shot out by giving him the knuckles and then fuck you and coming back with a
That
right
was
or
so
whatever he did
rude.
there. Like that was a cheap shot really, but I mean protect yourself at all times. Great performance by Nordine Taleb. Eric Silva, we'll keep him around. I don't know. I don't know where Nordine Taleb goes either, but speaking of PEDs, Taleb looked pretty good. Now, I'm not lobbing those kind of accusations at Taleb. His physique looked phenomenal. He had a nice haircut, but the fight was neat. It was a great stoppage victory. Props to my Canadian brother, Nick Baldwin, for calling it, but that's all I have to say about that.
Give me Eric Silva versus Brandon Thatch, and as much as I would like to fade Brandon Thatch from now on, give me Brandon Thatch in that one. What do you think?
I think
Loser,
that get all of
loser
your
leaves
girlfriends
town.
to watch that fight. If you got a girl in
Yeah.
your life that's questioning if she wants to watch the sport or not, she will watch that fight.
Loser leaves town too. Big stakes in that one. We'll have to wait and see if they set that up. Anyways, let's move on. Next prelim fight was Vitor Miranda with the very impressive second round TKO victory over Marcelo Gomes. I think we were all on Vitor Miranda here. He was a fairly large favorite to get the job done. He did just that. Brian, give me your thoughts on Vitor Miranda knocking out Marcelo Gomes.
Guimaraes. I thought that he would do it in the first round. I thought that Guimaraes would, drop his head and get hit with a head kick in the first round rather than have that similar thing happen in the second round. There was a little bit of controversy with this fight, Nick. The elbows to the side of Guimaraes' head from Lex Luthor. I think that they're fine. Herb Dean says they're fine because 12-6 is bad. But any other angle, I'm throwing out some other times of the day here, and they're completely fine. So 12-6, bad. Every other time of the day, completely fine. So, Nick, do you think that those elbows should be illegal? Do you think there's controversy with those elbows? And same question to you, Mr. Fight Picks.
I mean, I don't. I don't care either way. I think they were fine. I think to the side of the head, if I'm not mistaken, I think they should be legal. I think they were okay elbows. I don't have a problem with them. Daniel, do you?
No, man, it's a fight. You know what I mean? And props to Vitor for that takedown defense because I mean, this guy,
Yeah.
he's a world class kickboxer. Guy Moraes is a world class jiu-jitsu guy. So obviously, Guy Moraes wanted to get it on the mat, and Vitor didn't let that happen. He kept swimming under for those underhooks. And he kept getting it off the cage, and when he got his opportunities to fire, those combinations, they were pinpoint, they were crisp. He got that little opportunity with the head kick, and he capitalized and put him away. So, man, I'm very impressed with Vitor Miranda. I think that he might be someone to look out for at 185 pounds. He's 36 years old, so he's got to do it right now. This is his time. But, I mean, he's showing all the signs of, a potential great fighter that, I like what I see because, with some guys, they get taken down. And like, Brandon Thatch, they quick tap this and that. They give up their back. With this guy, he gets back up to his feet, and he keeps trying to knock you out. So I like Vitor Miranda a lot.
I want to say one thing about Vitor Miranda real fast, Nick. Sorry to interrupt here. He'll never get the title shot. He'll never have a title because, like Best Fight Picks, Daniel says here, he's too old to improve that much and to go through the time that it takes to get to that level. But let's put this guy in featured fights. Let's show him off to the world a little bit. People that aren't that familiar with the sport really need to see this guy's style of fighting. I think that he's really appeasing to the eyes. I think that some casuals would enjoy him as well. Let's put him as the fourth fight from the top rather than whatever the hell we had tonight.
Now I quickly want to go back to Holm, Tate, and Rousey. So apparently, right after the main event, Ronda Rousey texted Dana White. Well, I guess they were in a texting conversation. Doesn't matter. Basically, she said, I guess she said something along the lines of, "I guess I'm ready to get back to work," maybe hinting at UFC 200. I know initially when Holm became the champion, she was like, "No, let's take some time off." Maybe assuming Holm would defend her title against Tate. Now that Tate is the champion and Ronda Rousey has beaten her twice, Rousey knows that, yeah, let's capitalize on this. Let's take advantage. Let's win my title back. Brian, now you're shaking your head. What are your thoughts? Do you think Rousey takes back her, let's sit out for a little bit? Do you think she fights the UFC 200?
I just think why I'm shaking my head is because it's embarrassing, kind of. Like if I have to fight Holly Holm at UFC 200, I've got other obligations. I have to film some movies if you want me to fight Holly Holm at UFC 200. But if you want me to fight Miesha Tate, let's do it. Sign me up, motherfuckers. I just think that that's
Yeah, I
a
agree.
little bit ridiculous. You've beat her already. You're scared of Holly Holm, whatever. That's like they're going to do what they're going to do. It's a promotion. And sometimes we forget that UFC is a promotion. They're a money-making machine. But still, just to be afraid of Holly Holm so you have a movie you're recording at UFC 200, but you don't, evidently, if it's Miesha Tate. That's just kind of embarrassing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but you brought up a great point. I mean, I 100% agree. If she's kind of, I mean, Verdum, no matter what, was hurt, but it's kind of the same situation where he was hurt, but if it was Kane, he would fight. If it was Stipe, he wasn't. You can't blame Verdum because he was hurt no matter what, but it does look a bit fishy. I mean,
At
I
least he's still fighting the same guy.
yeah, exactly. At least he didn't say, yeah, I'm never fighting Miocic, or whatever. But Daniel, anything else you want to add on to what Brian said about the whole Ronda Rousey situation? Now she may fight at UFC 200.
It's all about where she's at mentally, but I saw a noticeable difference in Holm tonight. Not discrediting Misha's performance whatsoever, but she was in way better physical shape against Ronda than she was tonight against Misha. She looked a lot, I don't want to say softer, but I mean she looked a lot less defined. So who knows what the deal is there? But the person that fought Misha tonight looked like someone that Ronda could finish via armbar. So it didn't look like that same unstoppable force that fought Ronda. So, whatever Ronda wants to do, I'm behind her. If she wants to go in there and fight again, cool. She's got the mental edge over Misha, but at the same time, no, anything can happen in this sport. So maybe Misha can beat her. Maybe third time is the charm. But I do think Ronda has her number, so we'll see what happens. Give Amanda Nunes the shot. Let Ronda get a little more time to figure out what she wants to do.
All right, moving on back to the prelim card, we had a very exciting featherweight matchup between Darren Elkins and Chas Skelly. Darren Elkins picked up the slight upset here with a decision win over the scrapper Chas Skelly. Now, Daniel, you're really high on Chas Skelly. I believe you had him in a parlay or something like along those lines. You've had him on your show a couple of times as well. Give me your thoughts on his loss to Darren Elkins. Were you surprised at what Darren Elkins was able to do with his grinding, not abilities, but his grinding game and his what he does? But he also looked really, really good. I think this was one of the best Darren Elkins we've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the performance of his career, and the fact that he was able to beat a guy like Chas Skelly the way he did. I mean, it just speaks volumes to the improvements that he's made. And, I mean, I know how good Chas Skelly is in that first round. He was landing some good punches. You know, he was going for some good submission attempts, but he just couldn't keep it up in the second and third round, and Darren Elkins took advantage of that. So much respect to Darren Elkins. I do believe that, you know, he'll get a higher-ranked opponent in his next fight, and I also believe that Chas Skelly will rebound. So, you know, it was a good fight.
All right, Brian, what were your thoughts on Darren Elkins' unanimous decision win over Chas Skelly?
Real fast, I'm seeing on Twitter right now that 7 underdogs won tonight. How crazy is that? We're talking about Elkins right now winning as an underdog. 7 out of 12 underdogs won tonight. That is incredible. I said on the show with Daniel here that I thought Skelly was better everywhere than Elkins, but I think that Skelly is better with the striking. I think that he is better with the submissions, but he's not as good with the grinding, and that is the one area where Darren Elkins won this fight. Like Daniel said, I think Skelly will rebound and do really well, as long as he stops drinking Coors Light, because that shit's gross. But the guy's a really fun guy to interact with on Twitter, and I think that he's a fun fighter to watch, and I expect him to bounce back and do good things in the UFC.
I agree. I was, I guess, slightly disappointed because I did think Chas Skelly would do better than he did. But overall, I was impressed with both men. They put on a great show. I mean, if McGregor didn't lose in the main event in a fun fight, this could almost take home fight of the night. There were some good fights on the card, but I mean, Chas Skelly versus Darren Elkins was definitely right up there. Brian, you, another great point. I, too, thought Chas Skelly was going to be better everywhere, but you can't always count and assume fighters are either going to look worse or look better. You have to go by what you see, and when I see Darren Elkins fight, I don't see that. I just see a grinder, but he looked really, really good here. He looked a lot improved in every aspect of mixed martial arts, especially, of course, his grinding style, and because he was able to grind out Chas Skelly, but he did look better on the feet. He did look better on the canvas. He looked better everywhere, and I think that's one big thing in this fight. But also, it's just that no matter what, no matter how much he improved, he is the better grinder than Chas Skelly, and that's exactly where this fight would took place and where most people thought it would. So Darren Elkins got the win. Good on him. I do believe Chas Skelly will be back, but it's a bit of an eye-opener. Darren Elkins is maybe a bit underrated. Some people don't like his style. I'm not the biggest fan, but he gets the job done. And in this particular night, he looked pretty damn good doing it with a very exciting unanimous decision win over Chas Skelly. Featured Fight Pass prelim. Very interesting matchup between Diego the Nightmare Sanchez and Jim Miller. Diego Sanchez got the unanimous decision nod, and it was not controversial. Diego Sanchez, what do you know? He actually deserved this one here. He got the decision nod over Jim Miller, who we can probably all agree his time is just about up, if not up already. Brian, Jim Miller, I believe, was the slight favorite here. I was a bit surprised that Sanchez got the nod. However, this was one of those fights where it's like, if you're a betting man, just don't play anything for this one because it could end in the first round. It could go the distance. It could be Miller. It could be Sanchez. So it was a fight that anything could happen, in my opinion. Anyways, Brian, what were your thoughts on Sanchez's decision win over Jim Miller?
Well, Nick, I'm not as good of a betting man as Daniel, of course, but I went a little crazy here. I put Diego Sanchez wins in a three-team parlay with Bahadurzada Thatch doesn't go the distance and Taleb Eric Silva doesn't go the distance because I thought that Sanchez should be the favorite here. There was one area that I thought that Jim Miller would win this fight, and that was with submissions, but Diego Sanchez has superior takedowns and superior takedown defense, and it was nice to see Diego, the nightmare, the dream, whatever the hell he wants to call himself right now, get the victory. You know, I've been watching this guy since a long time ago when he weighed like 100 more pounds than he does right now. Both these guys, if they face any youth in the future, are going to be faded guys. Perhaps Diego should have retired on this, but you know what? I'm going to keep tuning in, watching Diego put his face out there and swing looping hooks. Actually, tonight I was pretty surprised that I thought that was going to happen, but he used an intelligent game plan. You know, he went for the takedown. He went for some ground and pound, some old school Diego Sanchez ground and pound. Yes, yes, yes. I think it was a pretty fun fight. I was pretty excited about the fight card at this point in the night. But that's pretty much all I have to say about it. What does Daniel think?
I think that they both fought their hearts out, man. I mean, they went out there and they gave us a classic performance. You know, I believe if it was later on the card, it could have been a contender for fight of the night. Maybe it still is, but I don't think so. They're probably going to give it to McGregor Diaz, or maybe they give out 4 performance bonuses. We'll see what happens. But you know, Diego got his first legitimate win since Paulo Thiago, so props to him. You know, Jim Miller, he fought tough today. It's just he was a couple steps behind. So we'll have to see what happens. Like I said before, with all these people talking about how Diego and Jim are on the chopping block, I completely disagree. You know, these aren't the kind of guys you cut. They're the kind of guys you retire. So if they want to retire, I'd tip my cap. But if they want to keep fighting, you know, I hope they give them guys like, you know, Joe Lozon, you know, guys in that area, Takanori Gomi, stuff like that. So
yeah,
those
I
are the
agree.
kind of things I'm thinking.
I agree. Definitely Diego, nor Jim, especially Jim, of course, are on the chopping block. One does not simply cut Diego Sanchez or Jim Miller, but I do see the UFC saying, "Hey, Jim Miller, the time has probably come for you. It doesn't look like you're going to win anytime soon unless Danny Castillo comes back." So, I mean, I could see him retiring. I really do think he could step away from the sport. I don't think he has anything left to prove, to do anything really. I don't see him beating many people in the UFC right now. I like Jim Miller. He's a fun fighter. He's a fun fighter to watch. He's a veteran. Same goes to Diego Sanchez. I'm not calling for Sanchez's retirement because he just won. As far as the fight, I was a bit surprised Sanchez won. I thought Miller would have been able to do a bit more on the canvas with his submission skills. That wasn't really the case. Sanchez was able to control the fight. I was not shocked that we didn't get an all-out war. I didn't think we would, especially Diego Sanchez as of late doesn't seem to get into wars, but it did not surprise me. This went the distance. I was expecting Jim Miller to pull off the decision. I didn't think we'd see the finish, though. The only thing that really surprised me was that Jim Miller was the one a few steps behind rather than Diego Sanchez. I thought Diego Sanchez would be a couple steps behind the entire fight, but it was the complete opposite. But no matter what, I'm not that surprised because, I mean, it's Diego Sanchez and Jim Miller in 2016. You can't be confident either way. Let's move on to Jason Sago getting the very, very impressive first round TKO over Justin Salas. Both fighters have been out of action since 2014, so it was a tough fight to call in that sense. Jason Sago was about a 2-1 favorite though, so skill wise he was definitely favored, but it was a bit of a tough fight to call because they've been out of action for quite some time. Daniel, what were your thoughts on the Canadians' TKO victory?
Well, it wasn't a tough fight for me to call. I had Sago all day. I thought he was going to make a statement, And not only did he make a statement by finishing Salas in the first round, he made a statement in the fact that he overcame a ruptured Achilles injury. You know, he took his time. He didn't rush it. He came back at the right time, and he looked better than ever. So this is a guy you got to look out for at 155 pounds. I mean, not only is his ground game spectacular, he dropped Paul Felder on the feet. He's the only man in the UFC to do so. So you guys got to look out for Jason Sago for sure.
And Brian, what were your thoughts on Jason Sago's TKO win over Justin Salas?
It was pretty damn impressive, actually. I picked him just like Daniel. But one thing that I thought was pretty fun was that this guy is a jiu-jitsu guy. He used his jiu-jitsu to then get in a position to implement some ferocious ground and pound. I think that more jiu-jitsu guys should be like that. We've got guys like, I don't know how I'm blanking on his name so fucking hard, about to get a title shot in the welterweight division. You know, just
Damian
about.
Maia?
Damian Maia, yes, Damian Maia. You know, he's pure jiu-jitsu. He's not going to throw a punch once he gets you to the ground. He's just going to jiu-jitsu the fuck out of you. With this guy, Sago, jiu-jitsus you and then beats the shit out of your face. That's some fun stuff. A lot of people, the casual fans, don't like that style of fight, that when it goes to the jiu-jitsu area, but he used the jiu-jitsu to get into some ultra violence. That was pretty fun. I'm going to talk about Teruto Ishihara versus Julian Erosa while I'm here, Nick, and then I can give it back to you. Teruto Ishihara did exactly what Daniel said he would do and put Julian Erosa down because Erosa was moving down a weight class. And this is the quote of the night. If it's not, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. It's, I love you, my bitches.
Yeah, I agree. That was absolutely perfect, and just
I love you, my bitches. Dude, he just became a fan favorite with that.
Yeah.
Now everyone, you know, I saw just tweet after tweet after tweet. They're like, Ishihara is my new favorite person. So,
it was
God bless Teruto Ishihara. I love you, Teru.
it was hilarious just because he doesn't speak English, so you know he practiced this over and over and over until he could get it right, until the pronunciation was perfect, and it paid off. He said, and you cannot dislike Teruto Ishihara. The fact that his main goal as an MMA fighter is to get girls, like he posted on, I believe, Instagram, either today or yesterday. He basically said, I'm going to knock this fool out, and then I'm going to go get some girls later tonight. And that's probably exactly what he's doing as we talk about his performance. As far as the fight, I mean, it didn't last too long. He did exactly what I expected him to do. Actually, I should take that back. I did pick him by decision, but I definitely did pick Teruto Ishihara in this matchup. I thought he was probably just better everywhere. I mean, Julian Erosa, I just haven't been impressed the little I've seen of him. So I was on board with the underdog here. It paid off. Ishihara gets the knockout win in the second round, very early in the second round. So it was a good performance. Very clean shot that, I mean, if Julian Erosa was a better fighter, probably could have been avoided, but he's not a better fighter, so it was not. And Teruto Ishihara got the second round knockout victory. All right, let's move on to let's talk about who should win fight of the night, and let's talk about who should win performance of the night. Both performances, of course. I'll go to you, Brian, first. Who takes home fight of the night?
Real quick, Nick, I was just watching some of the post-fight presser while I'm on this show, and Conor McGregor confirms that he will be dropping back down to 145 pounds for his next fight and defend his belt there. For performance of the night, you have to give one to Nate Diaz. A performance like that in the main event obviously gets performance of the night. I'm going to give fight of the night to Miesha Tate, Holly Holm, and I'm giving another performance of the night to Miesha Tate. So there's only 4 people involved, like normal, right? But Miesha Tate's going to get $100,000 from Flyin Brian on the post-fight bonuses.
All right, Daniel, who do you give your bonuses to fight of the night and performance of the night?
I'm not going to do a fight of the night. I'm going to do 4 performance of the nights. I'm going to do Nate Diaz, CR, Nordian Taleb, and Jason Sago.
All right, no, I will give fight of the night to the main event, Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor. I mean, with there not being tons and tons of great perform. Well, again, I should probably take that back. Prelims were full of good knockouts and things along those lines. I do feel Nate Diaz probably deserves 100K though. I hate sometimes when they give fighters 100K bonus because then it leaves out some prelims guys. There's only one more bonus to be given out to chance out the co-main event. Misha Tate does deserve one, but she's definitely going to get paid for this win over Holly Holm. So let me go and give the other performance of the night to Nordine Taleb. I really think, I mean, it's either him, Sago, or Taruto, but I'll go with Nordine Taleb here. I think his knockout win over Eric Silva was the most impressive out of the other two finishes I mentioned. For most people, it was the most surprising. I was surprised too that he got the knockout win rather than just a grinding decision. So I'll give Fight of the Night to McGregor, Diaz, and the two performances to Nate Diaz and Nordine Taleb. Now, obviously, the Clown Kid usually likes to grade these cards. Flyin Brian, now you also like to grade these cards. You grade. I'm not sure if you grade every fight. I don't know how you work it, but no matter the case, give me a letter, A to F. What you grade UFC 196?
First, Nick, I'm a normal fighter kind of guy. I'm gonna dive away from your question and answer a different question. I'm going to defend why I'm putting Tate with performance of the night because I feel like if you get a finish in a title fight as an underdog and you win a belt, you deserve a performance of the night bonus. And then, going into the 5th round, she was definitely down. She needed that finish. She got it. Real fast, guys, I'm going to tell you what the actual things were. Fight of the night, Conor versus Nate. Performance of the night, Nate and Tate. So Diaz is getting his 100K like you wanted, Nick. Okay, so grading the card. Until we got to the co-main and main event, I was not having a good time. Those 3 first fights that opened up the pay-per-view for us were shitty. They all went to a decision. There was no sways in momentum. There was no cheering moments. I never was on the edge of my seat. Nothing like that. And so for that reason, I'm giving this thing a C. Yes, the co-main and main were both really exciting, both really surprising, but the thing as a whole deserves a C from me. Another thing why it's getting a C, the pacing from bottom to top was terrible. Normally Fight Pass, it's like bap, 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 they're one after another. We waited in silence for 10 minutes in between fights because there was an early finish, and then on the pay-per-view portion, they gave us even more than usual fucking hyping us up for the fights that we were already there, we've already paid for, we're already looking at the screen, waiting to watch. They spent too much time in between fights, and for all of those reasons, this thing is getting a C.
All right, Daniel, are you going to be harsh like Mr. Flyin Brian here and give this card a C? I mean, it's not that harsh. I definitely understand it. My grading isn't too far off that. Anyways, or just give me a letter. I mean, it probably was an A plus. I mean, Brian did give out good reasons. The pacing, the fights obviously weren't fantastic either. So I mean, this isn't getting an A or maybe even a B. But what did you grade this card?
I'll split it between the main card and the prelims. I'll give the prelims a B plus because I mean they put it on, and for the main card, I mean the first 3 fights were kind of whatever, but the main and the co-main delivered. So I'll go with Brian and give it a C. I'll give it a C plus just because I want a little bit of money anyways. But yeah, why not?
And I'll go above both of you. I'll give it a solid B minus. I don't think it deserves a bit of a lower grade just because of those 3 first fights on the main card. Let me tell you, I did not enjoy those one bit. I was sitting there very bored, and the pacing, like Brian mentioned, was terrible as well. But I do think the prelims, one thing, were fantastic. So that if the prelims weren't that good, I'd be looking at, say, a C minus, maybe a C, maybe a C plus. But since the prelims were good and the main and co-main were fantastic as well, I'm giving this card a B minus, but very, very close between a C plus and B minus. I tend to grade cards higher than some people, so take that however you want it. Doesn't really matter though. Doesn't matter what we graded after all, but it's a fun grading card. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that point, but anyways, before we wrap the show up, episode 32 of Before the Ball Man Speaks, Brian, Daniel, appreciate you guys joining me, the guest host, of course, on the show, stepping up and helping out the Clown Kid, of course, who's on vacation in Brazil. I'm sure he appreciates it, keeping his show alive. Brian, quickly let our listeners know where they can find you on social media, where we can find your podcast, where we can find anything else you'd like to do in the sport of mixed martial arts. Let us know.
If you're watching this right now as a viewer, you made it to this point in the show and you don't know where to find me, I think you're probably lost. You should probably find your way. Ask your mom if you could get some directions from her. Thank you so much, Nick, for bringing me on the show. Thank you, Daniel, for hanging out with me. And thank you for the Clown Kid for allowing us to take care of his baby.
Absolutely. Gotta acknowledge the Clown Kid, of course. Daniel, I mean, people may not know where to find you. If they don't, then, I mean, I don't know. But nevertheless, let us know. Where can we find your podcast? Where can we find your bet? Where can we find your social media?
Well, firstly, thank you to the Clown Kid, my boy Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence. I know he's chilling on the Copacabana beach like my boy John Jones before that DC fight. So, you know, we miss you, the Clown Kid. We can't wait till you come back. Thank you so much for bringing me on your show 3 weeks in a row. You're the fucking man. And for all the fans watching right now, follow me on Twitter at BestFightPicks and, bestfightpicks.com for the plays. Consistently hitting over 2-to-1 dogs all year. And my show, Half the Battle, iTunes, YouTube, and SoundCloud. So thank you guys.
Yeah, you gotta love the Clown Kid. There is a reason I wanted him to be my new co-host of MMA Junior Radio, but we have to agree, him coming back.
Both have red hair.
Him coming back wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We could just toast Before the Mall Man Speaks from now on. I could get Robin Black on as my co-host every week. It wouldn't be terrible, but I mean, Andrew Lawrence is coming back, and it'll still be fantastic. As far as me, you can follow me on Twitter at NickUFC. Check out my other podcast, my podcast, MMA Junior Radio. I hosted with Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence each and every week. This past week we had a bunch of guys on: Jason House, Marlon Vera. At the same time, we had Brad Pickett on the show and Fernando Gonzalez, like I mentioned, co-hosted by Robin Black himself, Fight Network analyst. Check me out on Twitter. Check out my writing, bloodyelbow.com, MMAsucker.com, and my website, MMAjunior.co. With that, thank you very much to Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence for letting us take care of his show and host Before the Ball Man Speaks. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed Nate Diaz's submission win over Conor McGregor and new champion Miesha Tate, submission win over Holly Holm, and the rest of UFC 196, except for the 3 other fights on the main card. And with that, we're out.